So I've had this major concern with gaming in general, but more so NGS specifically as of late, because of just how much they are adding on top of everything that they already had. And what I'm talking about is the way to be able to pay to skip content, or like a pay to win in some aspects, where you pull out your money to be able to just completely skip content and get into the end of the game with essentially no work. A lot of what they've done recently is being able to skip levels, skip the story, skip doing the Trainia for skill points, skipping, doing your equipment, skipping how to get augmenting, like the best in slot augments that a lot of people put work into, and just buying these packs, scratching for them, a whole bunch of different ways. Now, I just think it's been out of hand, especially with this last month or so. With all that said, I wanted to go into detail today about all of those and talk about the implications that could arise from all this, or the implications that have already been happening with the game because of this. So to start us off, we're going to talk about the skip gameplay feature. So this is the thing that's all bundled together that allows you to skip levels, skip the story, and skip Trainia. So you can use AC, which is the real money currency in the game, to buy these separate things, and this just screams to me, skip everything almost in the game except for the very tail end, as everything else is bad or is just a hassle to deal with. From what I've learned of other games that do this, this is like a band-aid on the problem that they created themselves, and that is the new player experience, or the leveling experience is just so bad that they want people to just spend money to go around it instead of actually fixing the issue. But talking about these in their separate spots, skip leveling allows you to skip to level 70, which is 5 away from the maximum right now, and also get equipment tied with that for 1200 AC, or about $12. So this gives you one of each of the weapons of a class that you choose. So like Hunter, for instance, it gives you the Sword, Lance, and Partisan, plus 60 of the Monarchy or Monarchase series. It also gives you 3 of the plus 60 Actesta armors. These are only obtainable through these packs, and they're kind of like a mid-ish high range set of equipment. So it isn't like too crazy where they're getting like the best gear, but it is quite up there. With the augments, it's also like pretty good, but not like the best of the best necessarily. The best ones are like the Triple 2 and the Mastery 4. But in a couple weeks' time, they'll be updating this with the new level cap increase on the 11th. So this will allow you to get to 75, so still 5 off the level cap. But with the equipment, it gets a major upgrade. It gets to plus 70 with all these, bypassing that limit break mechanic that, requires you to get the Arms Refiner 2s and the Arms Refiner 1s, along with some Maceta and all those Gold Prim 2s, which is absolutely insane. But on top of that, they get way higher augments here. So the LC versions of all the best augments within the game, like Gladius Soul, High El Domino, Gigas Master, and Hal Finale, all still for just 1200 AC, or about $12. For those who don't know, these LC augments come from Lucille Exploration, which is a quest that just came out in August as an endgame activity. So you could take hours and hours trying to get into the thing, as well as spend hours trying to earn these augments to then put on to your gear. But now somebody can just come around, plop $12 and get all of that. That is absolutely insane to me. One could argue that, this is better than no solution for the new player experience. Have at least the Band-Aid instead of nothing if they're going to go that way. But they have already had something in the game that is currently ongoing, and that is seasonal events giving gear. So this is very little effort gear for very high upgrades, and being able to skip some of the headache with these weapons and armor, with the limit breaking and whatnot, that give you a plus 60 weapon with all of these augments on top, with the potential level 6 as well. And this is equipable at level 40, so that's pretty early on within the game. And with this, it only takes 10,000 seasonal points, which you can get that with a single limited time quest run, or by killing just a few seasonal enemies, which is pretty quick. You can also get the armors in here, like the Ajax armor, Vios armor, or Quality armor plus 60, which this is equipped by level 10s, level 24s, and level 70s. So you got some armor for across the entirety of the game that are useful to you, that are plus 60, but can go to 70 with their enhancement level, because they're also limit broken and have these augments on top. So I don't see why there needs to be a set out there that has the best stuff on it, or at least near best stuff with the LC Augs, when this stuff already exists, and it doesn't feel as bad because players aren't just instantly getting stuff that takes a ton of work. This isn't like too bad. It's more of like a mid-range thing now. And I don't know if I'd even say that, as it is more like a stepping stone, if anything, as there's still way better stuff out there in comparison to those things. But it's still nice for a new player because it allows you to do some more of the content and get through the beginning of the game faster. And with these seasonal events, they happen every other month, so there's a good chance there's one going on when you're playing. But when there isn't one, you can still buy those items out of the player market. So these are typically pretty cheap. You just got to look back into the previous update on the website and find what weapon was a part of it. So we'll look at the Revel coat, for instance, with the katana here. Go to weapons. Now, if we just do plus 60, we should be able to see quite a few of them in the market for a certain price. So looking at it here, 178k. That is pretty cheap, as you can get that in a single daily pretty much. So with this, it has the potential 6 just the same, has all those augments, and can go to 70 with the enhancement already. It's already limit broken, which takes quite a bit of resources. So with this, all you got to do is replace the Season augment, because that is a seasonal augment, only useful during that particular seasonal event that it came from. But with these, this will hold you off quite well for most of the content. You just got to change out a few augments, upgrade a little bit as to get the other augment slots, and you should be good to go. So in my opinion, this does not need to exist for the game, as there's already a Band-Aid-like system that doesn't cost any money. And this just serves as a spit to the face to all the players that have been playing even the most recent content, as it gives all of those LC Augs that come out of Lucille Exploration and more recently the limited time quests. Moving on to the next part, we have the Skip Trainia feature. This allows you to skip all the cocoons and towers released within the game so far for all of the skill points that you'll be using on your classes with their class skills. So this gives you a total of 45 points, 2 that you have to do through the tutorial for a total of 47, and this costs $9. In all honesty, this is probably the least offensive part of all of this, and isn't too bad because the Trainia themselves are bad or just okay to play through. I think the original function of all of these Trainia was to teach the players how to do certain things, like facing certain enemies while also doing parkour, or just doing specifically parkour to avoid certain like mines and whatnot. So teaching them the movement within the game and also how to play their classes. They just don't necessarily serve that function very well. With this, though, in combination with the level and equipment skip, it's a surefire way to have players that do this have no clue what they're doing within the game in terms of what they're doing with their equipment, what they're doing with their class skills, anything like that. It's going to be a very painful process, but they're all doing it while in endgame content with other players. I've seen this plenty already within New Genesis as well as base game PSO2, where these new players are getting into this content and infuriating the veteran players because they have no idea what they're doing, making the quest take way longer than they feel it should. So this leads the veteran players to go into private lobbies with their own friends instead of doing the public, and then new players are like, where's all of the other players? And they either can't queue into the systems, or they queue with all new players to where they're just having a real bad time doing any of the quests. This has been a fundamental issue with the game for quite some time, even back with classic PSO2, but having these two skip features just makes the problem more prevalent. And what Sega needs to do is to improve the new player experience. Have it be, more of a hands-on experience so people are actually learning through play instead of a ton of different text boxes that people will most likely skip. And maybe add a mentor system so that veteran players get encouraged to teach the newer players through some sort of rewards or something like that. Or even having quests that scale to certain levels. So maybe you can enter it at level 20, but you get scaled to like level 70 regardless of what level you actually are. I don't think this should be added to necessarily all things in the game, because there's some that should be separate to endgame, but then there should be content that all players are encouraged to play with each other. A good example is the limited time quests that have been happening, but basically those have just been devolved to one rank that are like level 70, level 72, or even level 75. So no new players can do that unless if they use these skip mechanics or go through the story and level. For the other parts of the skip gameplay feature, they have the skip story one, which you can imagine why that's just bad right off the bat. But this allows you to progress to the beginning of the latest chapter of the main story. After you use it, you get all the experience awarded to you that you would make with those different quests, and it costs just 900 AC, or just the same as the Trainia one. For this, you don't receive any of the Meseta or item rewards, though, that you get from skipping the story, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, this is just saying the story sucks, it's worth skipping, just spend the $9 so you can unlock all of the different regions and whatnot, because that is what this is tied to. Because if you don't progress through the main story, you won't be able to do the end game content, even if you are of this level or have all of these Trainia done. So they're expecting you to buy all three of these in tandem. So spending the 900 here, spending the 900 here, and the 1200 here to be able to do that end game content. Because if you don't buy one of these, you're going to be, under power if you don't have like the gear here, under power if you don't have the class skills, or just not far enough in the story to be able to do the said thing. You don't have access to it. In summary, for the skip gameplay feature, it just tells everyone that anything from before is not worth doing. It holds no value. And the only thing that you should be doing is the latest content, because that actually gives you things. But as we just saw, they'll just keep updating this to give what we just had as the latest content, like this equipment right here with the LC augments. So is anything worth doing? Is it all just going to be skipped for the next best thing? That's what it looks like right here. Now, though, let's get into the rest of it, as this was just the new player skip gameplay features. There's other things that aren't necessarily directly called skip features, but they feel like it, with being able to pay for certain augments that are way above and beyond everything else that you can earn in-game, as well as being able to pay to skip unnecessary headaches within the game that Sega caused themselves. One of the more obvious ones is this AC support item select scratch. So this happens about every few months or so, and just like the other cosmetic scratches, you can spend 200 AC to get a single item within like a loot box situation. And with these though, instead of cosmetics, they give best in slot augments that you can't get anywhere else, and also give you upgrade materials. There's been several iterations of this, as you can imagine, and within each of those iterations, there's different kind of capsules that are best in slot for the time, so they continuously get upgraded, just like how the skip gameplay features for the new players are. So with the first iteration, there's these Addy capsules that gave a single potency, as well as a single sub stat. If we take a look at it here, like an Addy Deft Mel gave 2.5% melee potency and 2.5% potency floor. So that's actually pretty decent for now, but it was insane back then when it released, which was back when the Rotem region released back in December 2021 or January 2022. So they did these 3 times before they moved on to a new iteration, and that is the hybrid Addy capsules, which are even better than those. So that's 3% potency for 2 different types, like melee and tech here, and even more with their substats. So 2.75% floor there, or have a mix of substats, because all of them have potency floor or something else. So like the Guamelra has damage resistance, 2.5%, and always that 1% potency floor in addition to that 3% potency for the 2 types. So that's just absolutely insane, even for right now. But now they have a new capsule called XT. So this has happened twice so far, so we expect it to happen one more time before they make like another set of probably these or something else. But these are 4% potency for either 2 types or all 3 types of potency if you get a parfait version, and they have substats as well. So the potency floor gets up to 1.5%, and like there's a substat there. Or if you get the deft versions, then they have 3% potency floor. And just to make a comparison with what we have in game right now to these XD capsules, just taking a look on like my armor here. So this half an ally is the best capsule you can earn in game. It gives you 4% potency, 15 HP, and 5 PP. So those things that you can buy are better for sure, because it gives more to the substats and also gives potency floor any one that you get, which means more DPS. The one saving grace for a lot of people for these is that you can technically get them off the player market from other people, but all in all, someone has to spend their real money to get these things. And I really don't like the fact that this is the best capsule in the game at any point. So they just keep coming out with better ones that will just trump anything that you would actually spend time on in game. It just is infuriating to think about that. This is basically pay to win through and through. I know some people don't like calling it that because there's no PvP in this game, but there are leaderboards that you do compete with for different like times or score. So this does give you an advantage in those. So you can call it pay to advantage instead. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You're still spending real money to get over somebody else. And for this, it allows you to technically skip using a different augment within the game, as you can just use this for a category of the 6 that you can have on your gear currently. For the rest of the items within this AC support item select, there are these limit break substitutes and potential unlock substitutes, things like that. It allows you to pass the material cost. So you don't need to spend arms refiners or the photon cubes or any of the materials that you get within the world itself, and just need to spend Meseta, and that's all you need to do once you have these. There isn't a limit break substitute for level 70 yet, as that's the max for enhancing, but I imagine that will just happen at some point soon. For these NAXP armors and weapons, this isn't that big of a deal because there's ways to get enhancement fodder within the game that's better, so this isn't necessarily bad here. Of course, that isn't all, though. You can actually skip more with the augmenting process and just not need to do any of the work for the augments through several more ways. One of them is also through other scratches, sometimes with revivals, or sometimes I just kind of do it willy-nilly, is that they have these S augments inside as scratch count bonuses. So after you scratch on these cosmetic scratches a certain amount of times, you get these. So Hal Finale S and High El Domina S. Usually it's like the best augments in the game at the time. And the difference between an S and a regular version like this one in the game is that instead of like a 7 or 8% success rate of putting it on your armor or weapons, it's a 100% success rate. So that means a guaranteed chance to put it on with just the one augment. You don't have to worry about it failing or anything like that. So that is an immense advantage in terms of like not worrying about, dealing with the farming of getting them all or spending Meseta to buy them out of the shop and then trying it in the, item lab itself, and you can just slap it on and, go on with your day. There's more ways than just that, though, to get these S augments. You can actually get them through AC deals sometimes in different packs where you can go to like the AC shop and you buy like premium sets, but in addition you get Mastery 4S, sometimes Arms Refiner 2s, or Defi augments, whatever, something that allows you to surpass just doing it in game. And this also goes for like the SG shop, so that's like a freemium currency where you can earn some of it in game, but you can also spend money on it, so it's kind of like a wishy-washy deal. But this also can give you like Hal Finale S, Mastery 4S, so you can skip all that work and just buy this instead. I talk a lot about these taking work, and you're skipping a lot of it by getting these S augments, so I wanted to prove that, so I'm not just talking out of my rear end. So at the item lab, we can craft that Hal Finale capsule as an example in the augment capsule section here. So we have Hal Finale. This takes 30 Aegis Soul 4s and 10 of each Domina. So for the Aegis Soul 4s, you get 3 per run of the Halfia Lake Urchin quest, so you have to wait for that to show up, or you can do the Trigger quest version, which takes Alliance badges to earn, or you can buy it out of the personal market. But for each run, you need to spend about 15 minutes on average to do it. So 10 times the 15, that's about 2.5 hours if you add that all up. And then for the Dominas, they're obtained in separate content. You're not getting them out of that Halfia Lake, so it's going to take more time to get those. So you can find them in Lucille Exploration, you can find them in Geolab Rank 2. There's multiple ways to get them straight up. You can also craft them in here, but that's kind of like an outdated method of doing so. But it's going to take you hours and hours to be able to get one of these, and they're only at a 7% success rate, while the S version is 100%. So if you want to match the 100% success rate, you need to make 10 of these, so that's going to take quite a while, and you need a 30% booster, as you can only stack 10 of these when you're augmenting at once. And what's funny, the only way to get these 30% boosters is by scratching, either on AC or SG scratches. So if we take a look at the play scratch tickets in Cyber Comfort for the scratch count bonus, there's a 30% right here at 20 times. So you have to spend $40 essentially to get one there, or you can get it with some SG scratches also on 20 plays. So you need to spend 1,000 SG, which that's more than just getting it in that pack as we saw earlier. So if you just spend 700 SG, you can get the Hal Finale S, Mastery 4S, and the experience earned. So it's a much better value to you if you don't care for those cosmetics that you're getting out of that SG scratch. And with all these, you may have noticed that they are limited in duration of time. They're only available for like a few weeks until they are gone. This is employing the tactic known as FOMO, or fear of missing out, that a lot of live service games use nowadays and really push the buttons of people. But this basically is to push people into thinking that they need to buy these things now, they need to spend money, because they don't know when it's going to happen next, and if they don't get it now, they're going to struggle through actually trying to upgrade, the problem that Sega themselves or any other live service has created. With that being said, there is one last thing that I want to show in NGS that I think is the worst culmination of all of this, and this is the recently added SG support item select. So, like I said before, the SG is a freemium currency, so you can earn it in-game, but you can also pay for it. And within this is just like the AC support that allows you to get upgrades with that currency. So this is Gigas Maste S, Gladiosol S, Hyel Domina S, and like these triple S's, all of which are the high end of the game, the best in slot for weapons and armor for the game. So this is trying to encourage people to spend their SG or even buy more SG to be able to get these things. But this isn't even the worst part of this scratch. It's this other preset skill enhanced success rates and preset skill item protections that are a new mechanic that got added in like August. So this mechanic is a thing that you can do in the item lab that allows you to enhance your preset skills or the fixes on your weapons and armor. This takes another weapon within the same series or the same exact armor of the same Fixa level, like this Fixa Terminal 1. If I have another Fixa 1 of an Astrian, I could smash this together to try to upgrade the Fixa. But with that, it's at a 10% chance by default. To show this in action, just going to use this Katana plus 60, and then put in like a launcher here to try to upgrade it. So, like I said, the 10% chance there to add a random level 1 enhancement, because this doesn't have any, and you can add those success boosters here to increase that chance, or put the item preserver to, if it fails, then it saves this item. So we're going to try here, press yes, and it'll be insanely lucky to get it to work. But yeah, it usually fails at that 10% chance, as you can imagine. So for common weapons, it isn't too bad, because you can just keep getting them over and over again. It's pretty easy. But for things that take quite a bit of work to do, the things that you would actually want to increase the Fixa for, like for Schmells, or even like Tasa, because that's like an insanely rare weapon, it's basically not going to happen without those boosters. So basically, you're going to want to keep scratching on this to get more of these boosters, because this is the only way to get these as of right now. There might be something added later, but we have no idea. This could be the only thing that could happen. And with this scratch, it's a limited time. It's only available until the 10th. It's only a few weeks until it disappears, and we don't know when it's going to come back. So, like, you can save your SG for this when it comes around again, but maybe you'd want to spend it on other things within the game, because there's plenty of things to spend SG on. Material storage, build parts, the treasure shop. You can spend it on auto sell if you really want to. You can spend it on the mission pass. It kind of depends on if you have premium or not, which premium costs money as well. But with all those things, earning the SG in game is kind of like all over the place. Some of it's really easy to get SG, some of it's very hard, but it's all limited per week or like a per month basis. So you can only get so much before you just run out if you keep spending it. And typically, what you're spending it on that's going to drain it out is the other SG scratches for cosmetics. Thankfully, there is like a daily free ticket with those usually. But, you know, if you want these bonus items, that's the only way to get them. So if you want the Overjoyed 2, which is only available as a scratch count bonus and not tradable, you have to at least spin on this 30 times. And that's what usually happens with these SG cosmetic scratches. There's stuff in here that you can't get anywhere else, and you need to scratch on it with your SG to be able to get them. So as you can imagine, with the support item select, it also has things like that. Except for it's tied to that preset skill enhanced success rate, but it gives 100% versions of these, which you can't get in the scratch itself. So that guarantees the fixes to happen, and you can just save them up for weapons way later in the game for when it matters more, like when we get like 12 stars, 13, 15 stars, whatever. And you can also use it for armors too, or just use it whenever you want. But you would basically spend up to this amount at least, or even the 90 times. So that's going to take 4,500 star gems to be able to get up to that point. I don't think I'm wrong in taking this guess here, but I think most people don't just have 4,500 star gems just laying around. If you did, then you probably weren't spending much on these SG scratches to get the count bonuses because you didn't care, and you probably weren't spending too much on like the build parts. There's something that you were not spending on to be able to do this, right? So it's kind of unfair for those that were spending on the cosmetics prior to this being, announced. Regardless of that, would somebody actually spend money on star gems? There's been quite a few people that have said buying star gems just really isn't worth it in comparison to AC, but they're actually wrong, because when you look at the SG purchase section, it's basically the same rates as AC, except for like the ones down below. So if you're only buying like 20 star gems for 100 AC, that one isn't really worth it, because each pull of a SG scratch is 50 star gems, and each pull of an AC scratch is 200 AC. So if you spend 200 AC on this, you get 40 star gems, which isn't enough for a pull on an SG scratch, but is enough for a AC scratch. But further you go up this list, the better the rates get, even where it flops. So if you have like the biggest pack here, then you actually get more value out of it than the AC scratching. So you can get like a 56 pulls or something like that with this, and only get like 54 pulls with the AC version of it. So it's still almost like equal, but if people are willing to spend 200 AC for one pull on an AC scratch, then they would do the exact same thing for star gems. This just goes back to the issue that I was talking about earlier, where the game is creating a problem to then sell you the solution. I know these video games need to make money somehow, but I think these cosmetics and everything else that's in the AC and SG shops is fine enough. There doesn't need to be more on top of it than there already is with like the upgrading, trying to sell these XDs and addies, trying to essentially skip all of the content within the game that we have with how little there is that feels worth to do. To put it into other words, they're basically saying skip all of the previous content with those skip gameplay features to then get to that latest content, to only skip that latest content, because then you can just get the guaranteed versions in this scratch with these S augments, because these are the current augments that we have for the game right now. You get these from the aerial combat zones, you get them from doing the urgent quests, you get them from doing Darkfall Solace, etc., at least like the material components to make these. And they're just like such a low chance and such a pain in the ass that these like players are encouraged to get this, and they don't want to go through all that bullshit. So I don't know what is there left to do in this, at least in terms of gearing, because the only thing that's left is going to be caring about cosmetics, which are basically all tied to spending money as well. And what's funny about all that is, like, with the cosmetics, you can buy them with Meseta in the player market if the players that spend the money on these put them there, but you're not going to really be getting good Meseta because those players are also going to be getting these, so they don't need to buy the original augments off of you or the material augments so you can get the money. The only way that's left is to get raw Meseta out of combat zones, which are the most boring content in this game. So I don't know what happened to the MMO or the RPG aspect of Phantasy Star, or maybe even some other games that are doing the same exact things, because from what I remember, it's about getting, a certain gear set to then be able to do something to keep going up and up and up, to then feel like a badass at the end, and you feel fulfilled because you actually earned all of that on the way through. You made a journey instead of skipping to the end. That's everything that I have on this topic for today. I'm sure that some of you will think that, this isn't that big of a deal and I shouldn't be really talking about it in this way because it's not worth it. But I've had this feeling for quite some time, and I'm sure others have too. And I just wanted to see, more discussion about it because it's becoming more of a problem. I don't want it to return to the ways of base game PSO2. There's more and more augments in these SG and AC scratches that are only obtainable in those scratches. I don't want it to return to that because that would be a nightmare. But I think this is more just fundamental issues with the game itself, because they basically take a lot of this content that they have and just make it obsolete / not worth doing because there's this new thing that needs to be focused on instead that's way more rewarding. Sometimes when they drop things at the same time, it feels that way too. Like with Lucille Exploration and Darkfall Solace, Darkfall Solace is not rewarding, but is way harder than Lucille Exploration. Lucille Exploration is giving you a whole bunch of this gear, like the Augments, the Bershmells, the Octo, and Darkfall Solace gives you outdated gear, like Ajax armor and kind of Neosastrian. I guess that one isn't as bad, but that's pretty much outdated. And it gives you 20 SG a week, which is like nothing. It's like not even half of a scratch that we just saw. So yeah, it just feels way off in terms of the difficulty and reward ratio, which I think is the biggest issue in this game. But they need to make more content, not just get, booted out of the cycle. They need to have a wide spread of things so people can go to one thing or another. So when they get bored of, X, Y, or Z, they can go to the other stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.